Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about setting goals for the new year. So, as we know, it's the end of one year and the beginning of another, often a time for renewal for a lot of us. So, maybe you're thinking about making your life better in some small or large way. Maybe it's a lifestyle change like quitting smoking or walking more, or maybe it's about being more grateful for what you have. But either way, almost half of us make a commitment to making a positive change in our life for the new year. That's pretty incredible if you think about it, and it's one of the things that we're going to talk about today. So today we're going to go over the difference between goals and resolutions. We're going to go over why resolutions often fail. We're going to go over some tips for goal setting and then some principles of lifestyle modification. Every year, many people, maybe even you, make a list of resolutions for the next year. And generally, these are habits that they'll try to do every day or habits they will try to avoid for as long as they can. Unfortunately, many of these resolutions are forgotten by March. And a major reason for this is that it's very difficult to develop a new positive habit or deny an old negative habit cold turkey. So while the effort to adopt resolutions shows a sense of positive intent, a better alternative is to develop new goals. And setting goals is more beneficial because it's a gradual process rather than expecting to change immediately. So what's the difference between resolutions and goals? Well, resolutions are usually a means to a goal, but if you find a resolution too difficult to stick to, it's usually dropped and forgotten. Resolutions also usually stay the same, like I will go to the gym regularly even though I don't at all right now, or I will give up junk food. And it may feel like a huge change with no real build-up. Goals, on the other hand, can be tackled in steps, beginning with baby steps and increasing in difficulty as you become more accustomed to the change. And this makes goals more realistic for lasting change. So with goals, if you find a plan change too difficult to carry out, you can adjust the goal to a lower intensity. By doing this, it allows you to move at your own pace while still working towards your ultimate goal. Goals also give you a direction to aspire to. They make you feel like you've accomplished something and are on the right track and keep you moving in the right direction. So here, as you can see, we have a table of resolutions versus goals. And on the left, you see common resolutions, and on the right are examples of goals. As you see on the left, you see general broad statements with no real direction. Then you go to the right side and you'll find goals that have been broken down into a more specific focus point. So for example, instead of using the blanket statement, get in shape, a better goal might be, I want to run a 5K in under 30 minutes by 2019. Another common resolution is to save money. So that broken down into a goal could look like, okay, I want to set aside $300 a month for the next year. Another example would be to spend more time with family and friends, and that could be I want to call or spend time with one loved one every week during 2018. And then lastly, we've got get organized, and that could be I want to set aside 15 minutes every day for the next month to file paperwork and bills. So by setting goals, it allows you to have some sort of action item that you work towards instead of a resolution with no plan. So when we're setting our goals, we want to remember the SMART goal acronym. We want our goals to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So let's start with specific. So a lot of times people might say, I want to eat healthier, or I want to get fit. But what does that really mean? The truth is that can mean something different to each and every individual. So let's get more specific. Instead of saying, I want to eat healthier, you could break that down and say, I want to agree to cut out red meat on the weekdays. We also want our goals to be measurable. We want to be able to measure our success. So an example of that could be, I want to perform a workout 2 times a week, or I want to lose 5 pounds. We want our goals to be attainable. Your goals should stretch you slightly so that you feel challenged, but goals should be defined well enough so you can achieve them. We want our goals to be relevant. So is this something you're interested in, and can this be done with your schedule? And lastly, we want our goals to be timely. We want to set a timeline in which we want to reach that goal. So at the top here, we have an example of a SMART goal, and that is to lose 20 pounds in the next 6 months by eating a balanced 2,000 calorie diet and exercising 3 days a week. So this goal is specific because this person said that they want to lose 20 pounds instead of just saying they want to lose weight. It's measurable because you can track the pounds with the scale. It's attainable because 2,000 calories is only 300 less than what they eat now, and they have the time in their schedule to exercise 3 days a week. This goal is relevant because this person is overweight and they've been wanting to lose weight for some time. And it's time bound because they gave themselves 6 months to reach this goal. So We want to set specific goals that we're able to measure our success in, so this way we can celebrate when we've reached a goal, and this will increase our chances in continuing with our lifestyle modification. So now we're going to talk about step-by-step goal setting. So step one is to brainstorm your goal. Think about what you value, think about what could add value to your life and the lives of those around you. We also want to make sure you believe in your goal and it's something you believe in. Otherwise, you won't have the willpower to complete the goal, and in not completing the goal, your self-confidence will go down. We also want to make sure it's something that's attainable for you in this stage of life. And we want to think about our future. Think of where you'd like to be in 2, 5, or even 10 years, and see if your goals bring you closer to that picture. Step 2 is to make it specific and write it down. So once you have your goals set, keep them in the forefront of your mind. Keep them listed in your day-to-day planner, have them set as part of your screensaver, or post them in prominent places around your house. Then you can break them down into smaller goals and think of what steps you need to take to reach those goals. We also want to write down why this goal is important to you. How can this benefit you, and why are you really wanting to achieve this goal? We also want to think in terms of what we'd like to add to our lives rather than what we'd like to take away. An example of this is, instead of making the goal eat less unhealthy food, focus on trying to eat more healthy food. You may subconsciously feel more deprived if you're thinking of taking something away rather than adding something good. And if you replace unhealthy food in your diet with healthy food, the same goal is accomplished. Step 3 is to break it down. Long-term goals need to be broken down into small steps. If the goal is for 1 year, break it down into 4 sections. So for example, if your goal is to run a half marathon 1 year from now, your goal for the next 3 months could be to start running or walking 3 times a week and signing up for a 5K. Then you can progress from there to signing up and training for 10Ks and increasing your time and intensity running. The key is to figure out what the first baby step is and focus on that before moving on. Step 4 is to think ahead. What are some possible obstacles that could keep you from reaching your goal? And brainstorm ways to get around those obstacles. So for example, do you have that social support and accountability? Can you set out your workout clothes the day before? And can you make a healthy grocery list? It's also important to use times of high motivation to prepare for times of low motivation. Step 5 is to reevaluate your progress. If you set a year-long goal, check in on your progress after 3 months, and then you can adjust your action steps and timeline based on where you're at. So even if you haven't made any progress at all, use this as a learning experience and don't be overwhelmed with guilt. Based on the length of your goal, figure out now when and how many times you need to reevaluate your progress. So it's kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. Goals are such a beautiful thing because we can always adjust them as needed. Step 6 is to reward yourself. Brainstorm ways to reward yourself for reaching this goal. It can be something big or small. An example is you get to buy a new pair of jeans after going down a couple of sizes, or you get to buy new workout clothes after reaching a goal. And rewarding ourselves helps to keep us motivated. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the trans-theoretical model of behavior change. And this just states that people who change their behavior go through many stages. And it's important to identify which stage you're in so you know the challenges you need to overcome in that stage. The first stage of change is pre-contemplation. You're not intending on taking action in the foreseeable future and can be unaware that your behavior is problematic. Next is contemplation. You're beginning to recognize that your behavior is problematic and start to look at the pros and cons of your continued actions. Preparation is the next stage. You're intending to take action in the immediate future and may begin taking small steps towards behavior change. Next is action. You're making actual changes to your problem behavior by incorporating healthy choices and behaviors into your life. And lastly, we have maintenance. You've been able to sustain action for at least 6 months and are working to prevent relapse into previous unhealthy behaviors. So why are the stages of change important for setting goals? Well, it's important to know if you're ready to set the goal, to know what obstacles you might face because of a certain stage you're in, and to know what you need to do to get to the next stage. And if you aren't in the preparation phase yet, then take the necessary steps to educate and motivate yourself in order to get to that stage before you try to set a goal. Next, we're going to talk about principles of lifestyle modification. The following are helpful principles of lifestyle modification created by health psychology researchers. You can use these principles to evaluate and guide your lifestyle modification efforts. Principle number 1 is types of motivation. We have intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. For intrinsic motivation, this is when people engage in an activity because it's inherently interesting or enjoyable to them. An example is if somebody went hiking because they like that. They like being outside and they like that type of exercise. And this is the most effective type of motivation for behavior change. Next, we have extrinsic motivation. And for this, goals are established mostly as a result of direct input from social contacts or environmental stimuli. An example of this would be if you went to the doctor and he told you if you didn't change your eating habits, you would develop diabetes. Different types of extrinsic motivation could be from social norms or expectations around you, a means to an end, to avoid punishment, or to gain a reward. So, as I said earlier, intrinsic motivation is the best for behavior change. And that's because as soon as the external factor is removed from someone who's externally motivated, they will no longer be motivated to continue the behavior. And as we know, internal motivation is something you already enjoy and does not require a great deal of willpower, whereas external motivation does involve a great deal of willpower because it's often accompanied by pressure, a consequence, or an end. So here are a few examples of some practical motivation tips. Create a picture collage of quotes and reasons why you want to accomplish this goal. It can be good to have a visual in front of you. You can keep a journal of positive changes as they happen. So as you're working towards your goal, if you notice any positive physical or emotional changes, it's good to jot that down. Make a list of counter arguments for your most frequent cop-outs. Tell at least 2 to 3 people about your goal. Again, it's good to have some accountability and support there. You can post your goal on social media and write down your why and put it on the fridge. And that's just an explanation of what drives you to set these goals. The second principle of lifestyle modification is limited self-control. So a lot of times people will often say, if I only had more willpower, I would do this, I would do that. But it takes effort to change one's lifestyle. And psychologists who study willpower refer to this concept as self-control. And psychologists believe that each person has a limited amount of self-control. Some might have more than others, but there's no unlimited amount. But the more you're able to limit things that tempt you to deviate from your goal, the more successful you will be. An example could be tempting food in the house. So if you remove all of the tempting junk food in the house, you will have to use less self-control and willpower to avoid that because it won't be in front of you. It's important to note that stress can also affect your ability to cope with lifestyle changes and modifications. The more stressed you are, the more emotionally drained you are, and the harder it will be to make even small changes. So it's important to learn ways to manage and cope with stress and try to start lifestyle changes during periods of low stress. Self-control and willpower also seems to be renewed daily, and it's at the highest in the morning. And this explains why people who work out in the mornings are often more successful with sticking to their healthy lifestyle. It also explains why dieters are more likely to be successful at the start of the day and end up splurging more as the day goes on. The third principle of lifestyle modification is false hope syndrome. And this is the tendency people have to set lofty, unrealistic goals. So it's important to know the difference between a lapse and relapse. A lapse is slipping up 1 or 2 times, and a relapse is multiple times. But it's important to give yourself grace when you mess up, because you will, and simply use that as a learning opportunity. The last principle of lifestyle modification is planning fallacy. And this is when people consistently underestimate the time, energy, and other resources required to complete a given task. A good example of this would be building or remodeling a home. That usually takes longer than expected because of hiccups that you can't account for. So it's important to be flexible with your timeline and think it through. And just remember that changing habits takes a great deal of time and effort. So set modest goals and take small, manageable steps. So I want to end this presentation by reminding everybody that one day is not going to make or break you reaching your goals. And that's good news and bad news. The good news is that if you don't stay on track today, you haven't completely lost. The bad news is if you do everything right today, you still have a lot of work to do tomorrow. And just remember that working out for one day isn't going to make you buff, but also not working out for one day isn't going to make you lose all of your muscle. It's a compounding effect of day-by-day work, and the decision to reach your goal has to be made all over again every day. You look back 1 or 2 days and won't see much of a difference, but if you wait and continue to work hard and then look back weeks, months, and years, there will be the biggest difference made.